All right, good evening. This is Success Paradigms. I'm Emilio Garcia, and with me, as always, is Mr. Andrew Barker. This is episode 31 with the one and only Tony K. And I'm guessing, and I'm not going to even try, people butcher your last name, and that's why you went with Tony K.
Tony K.
Or just because it sounds cool.
Curdlin. Actually, in the first name is actually Owner. But it's, so I'm part Turkish with some Russian blood, some Azeri blood, as well as my mom's mother's family is from Chicago, so very mixed. But Tony, so growing up here in Texas, Owner or Onur in Turkish, which means honor, which is the Turkish alphabet is very similar to the Latin. So it's A, B, C, so O-N-U-R is Onur. Honor. But growing up here, Texas, it was let's say interesting, trying to get people to digest that. So at a very early age, someone said, "You look like a Tony," and I just grabbed it and went.
And honestly, Tony K sounds kind of like badass.
Yeah, it does.
Mess with me kind of deal.
Yeah.
I'm glad you said there's a little bit of Russian there.
Sure. Yeah, we have some Russian, some Azerbaijan. So my father's father is from Baku, Azerbaijan.
Oh, dude, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I love that place. I never knew it existed until, and I'm ashamed, but
no, it's okay.
Formula One started racing there.
Yeah.
And I love how you see the city and it's all modern and whatnot. And they take a turn and it's literally going next to the wall of a medieval castle.
Yes, and
I
all
love to go
those.
there.
Yeah, and all those, Azerbaijan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Georgia, they were all provinces of the old Soviet Union.
There's something about Azerbaijan, the people have a very distinctive look. Like
Yeah,
I wouldn't confuse them for Muscovites or
yeah.
Georgians.
Each province, I say province of the old USSR.
Right.
People now, I'm 44. The younger generation doesn't maybe remember.
Sadly,
So,
for them.
These people were raised under such a, I say oppression, but hard situations, right? And it builds character in the people. And each province had its own type of maybe hardship, you could call it. But like my grandfather, my father's father was a revolutionary. So he fought the Soviets, he fought communism his whole life. So my uncle, who's passed away now, my dad's oldest brother, Ildeniz, wrote a book about my grandfather, about his plight of fighting the Soviets and fighting communism. He actually was one of the first graduates from their West Point military academy in Azerbaijan, formed his own, I guess you call it, rebel forces to fight the communists, and spent his whole life
in English. I'll read it.
Yeah, it's not. It's in Turkish, and that's one thing I would love to get it translated to. And so he spent his life fighting. So the original so my last name is Kurtulan. That means free in Turkish. The original last name is Babazadeh. Babazadeh is the Azeri Russian last name. My grandfather so the KGB was chasing him his whole life. They would come to his house, break in, so what they did is they were working with the US government, the CIA, and they would take the family, and they sent one brother to Baghdad. They sent another brother to Iran. They sent my dad to Tehran. He was living in the Shah's palace. So it's a very interesting story.
Really?
And a couple times my grandfather was taken to Siberia to be executed, and somehow got out of that. I mean, just an amazing, like a Jason Bourne type thing. So the last name is interesting. Yeah.
Dude, we're going to have to do another show because you got the Jason Bourne background. Mine is more of like The Sound of Music. They literally got them. They came in at the middle of the night and said, if either you run right now or you won't make it till the morning.
Oh, wow.
And my dad and siblings and parents left literally with a suitcase and just get the hell
Wow,
out.
I never heard that story, Emilio. So definitely got to have. Tony
You
back
haven't
on
bought
the-
enough beers, dude.
Fair enough.
No, sure, of course.
Yeah, for the listeners and viewers, Azerbaijan is important. I'm oversimplifying, Tony, but it's so important today, right? It's the energy powerhouse, production of
Oh, yeah.
oil, natural gas, etc.
Yeah.
Right?
The Caspian Sea, right there, the Caspian Sea, Baku is right there on the Caspian. It is
Yeah.
the oil, petroleum
Right.
juggernaut.
Forgive
in that
me, but the
area.
first time I heard of it was from that Bond. There's one Bond movie
Yeah.
where it takes place partially in Baku and
Yeah. Yeah,
in
and
thereabouts.
there's, I don't know, there's pipelines coming out of there going to the Black Sea where they fill up the tankers, and then those tankers go through Istanbul, ironically enough, where I was born. Those tankers, so yeah, so the oil reserves there, that is the number one, far as what I know of as the driving force economically in that area.
So we just spent 10 minutes to get to the first question. Where were you born and where were you raised?
I was born.
And you just answered one.
Sure. I was born in Istanbul, Turkey, to my parents, Ilhan and Suzan with a Z. My father's family was from Azerbaijan, Baku. The family they had a choice to leave Azerbaijan, working with the US government. They said you can go to New York City or you can go to Istanbul. You pick. Well, my uncle, who's passed away now, Ildeniz, was studying to be a doctor in Istanbul. So they chose Istanbul instead of New York. So my father's family, they got them all together on the border there and they brought him to Istanbul. So my father was in a folk dance group, the Russian, Azeri, the Kafkas, they call it, with the fur hats and the dancing, right? So he was in a dance group.
And the vodka.
My mom was at the American Girls School. My father's dance group came, and my mom fell in love with her instructor. My mom's father, the last name is Kazdal, a very affluent family in Turkey, businessmen who came into Turkey from Georgia, Russia, believe it or not, early 1900s, as I know, and they were businessmen. They came in, they built up businesses, started buying land, fishing boats right there, Rize, Rize, off the Black Sea, right there on the Georgia Turkish border. And they built up their business holdings. And at one point were providing, had most of the plywood and wood veneer factories for all of Turkey. So big businessmen on my mom's side. And I think that's where I get a lot of my business acumen. So they met, and fell in love and got married, had me and my brother. And then we moved to Dallas in 1979. I was 2, my brother was 3.5, 4. Yeah, so that's a little bit of the background.
Okay, so you were born there, but you're actually from Dallas.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
You know what, it's funny. So I have this conversation with my wife all the time. My wife's from Fort Worth, from Haltom City. She's born and bred Texan. What makes someone from somewhere? Right? So the way I define it is, where could you drop me off and I can survive? So if you drop me off anywhere else outside of the US, I'd have trouble, right? So
No, you wouldn't. No, you wouldn't.
Dallas is home. I love Dallas. I consider myself a Texan. I can two-step. I have been known to wear a cowboy hat.
You're more Texan than me. I cannot two-step. I won't even try.
It's very easy. I'll show you. It's 2 to the right, 1 to the left, 2 to the right, 1 to the left. It's very similar to salsa. People.
And salsa either. I don't know where you're going.
I can teach you that too. I can teach you that too. Very easy. Very easy.
All right. So you moved over here when you were 2. School and everything here in Dallas, local.
Yeah. So we got here. My father didn't speak English, so I watched my father growing up work 3-4 jobs while taking English, TOEFL. I think TOEFL, English as a second language. At nighttime, my father was literally driving from job to, he has a degree. He's a mechanical engineer by trade, degree in that. But because he didn't speak English, my father was having to wash dishes, doing the jobs that a lot of immigrants do, and watching my father wake up at 3 a.m., 4 a.m., go to his first job, sleep in his car, go to his second job, sleep in his car, go to his third job, sleep in his car, go to his fourth job. Watching my father do that, it instilled a work ethic in me. I found it hard to be lazy with the precedent that my father set for me. So watching that, so we started off in South Dallas, and as he learned English, then we ended up in Richardson, then Plano eventually. I graduated Plano East, 1996, very proud Plano East alumni. Started judo age 6, started football, 8th grade, 7th, 8th grade. So yeah, that's my upbringing there. And then my father, by the time I graduated high school, he was the VP of engineering for Columbia Sussex, which is a hotel corporation, 70
awesome.
hotels. Yeah, 70 hotels, 20 casinos. He was the VP of engineering. They would not buy a hotel without him checking off on it. So literally the American dream, not rags to riches, but coming here and working your way into a successful situation. So a really good, a great story. My father, very proud of my father.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
sounds like a great man.
Great.
So
man.
I see a flag there in the back in case.
Yeah.
Did you serve?
I did not. But on my mom's side, so my mom's mother is from Chicago, Margaret Davis, south side of Chicago, from Welsh German American immigrants. Came in Margaret Davies with an E. But when they came to Ellis Island, like most people, they spelled it wrong. They took the E off, so it became Davis.
Right.
So they immigrated to Chicago. My grandmother was a redheaded American woman named Margaret Davis at the University of Illinois, Champaign-Urbana, studying to be a nurse. My grandfather, my mom's father, Mustafa Kazda, was a exchange student from Turkey, studying. So he went to university. He has 2 doctorates: University of Indiana philosophy, and in economics from University of Illinois. So he was at Illinois, and he met my grandmother. They fell in love, and they eloped, which was a big deal back then, because coming from a family that was very, financially, in that culture, they picked your wife, right? So his wife was always selected. So he came here. When he went back, he showed up with an American woman. It was like,
Okay.
Imagine.
so that made for some interesting turn of events, but had 6 kids. My mom was the oldest. So yeah, that's a short-ish answer. I know we don't have a lot of time. We'll definitely.
Oh,
My story goes deep. I'll cut it short there.
no, as I said, we're gonna
That's
either have to do another show or get Andrew to buy us a couple of beers.
Or both.
He wants to hear both sides of both
Yeah,
stories.
or both.
Sure.
Yeah.
So after that, college was it here in Texas
College
or?
was University of North Texas.
Okay.
In Denton. So I started there in 96. I walked on to play football. 60 people walked on. They kept 5. I was proud of that. I made it. I tore my knee up, got out, finished my degree in Bachelor's of Business Administration. And it's interesting. I had an interesting story right out of college. I had trouble. My name on my resume was owner. I didn't have it as Tony. And, I sent out a lot of resumes, and I worked as a waiter to pay for school. Because after I tore my knee up, I moved back home to East Plano, and I commuted. I drove to Denton Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then I worked full time. I worked 60, 70 hours a week to pay for school. So when I got out, a lot of the response was, you don't have any experience, which I always found interesting. I was trying to pay for school. Internships at that time, a lot of them were, not paid. So my circumstances, not complaining, but it was the journey I went on. Got out, I had some issue there. So I ended up in Waxahachie, Palm Harbor Homes, selling trailers. They literally threw a phone book at me and said, start calling people. And so I started calling people, and I didn't know what I was doing. And long and short of it, started getting a little better. And, the average salesperson was selling about 7 trailers a year. I was starting to do about 1 a month. And my luck changed. I met a gentleman and he owned so I'll tell you that this is a good story. I'll tell it quick. So it's a
Oh,
lot
take
like
your time, man. I
yeah,
mean,
it's a lot like a car dealership. Whoever comes up, so it wasn't my turn up. A guy pulled up in an old pickup truck, overalls, older gentleman, didn't look like he had a lot of money. So my manager said, he said, "Hey, Rook," I was a rookie. So hey, rookie, you get him. I said, okay, no problem. He came in, I talked to him, I showed him, I asked all the questions, I treated him no different. Before he left, he said, "Hey, so we were on 35 heading south towards Austin. So it was, you pass Ovilla Road, Red Oak, and then you're heading towards Waxahachie, and it was on the left side. So you're pretty far south, a good solid 45 minutes to an hour south of Dallas, south of Plano, excuse me, where I was living." And he said, "Look, I've been up and down 35 and no one has given me the time of day. You're the first person that actually treated me with respect and treated me like, gave me your attention. Everybody else kind of blew him off." So I kept talking with him. Turns out this guy owned 4 or 5 trailer parks. So he was wealthy and he was looking to open
Wow.
2 or 3 more. Turns out, long and short of it, he ended up buying, it was almost 40 homes, 40.
ooh,
So
Wow.
5-6 years worth of an average person's sales he bought from me. So we built a relationship, and that was my first time understanding
That's awesome.
the power of relationships and the power of treating everyone. It's cliche, especially nowadays.
yeah, but it's cliche for a reason.
Yeah, and that was, and it was funny. Before I took the job, I was very upset, and I went to my father, because we talked about him before. I'll bring it up again. I went to him and I was very upset. I got it. Literally, the only job I was offered was a job that you can get without a college degree. And I was like, what is this? This isn't fair. What are these hands I've been dealt? This hand I've been dealt. This is crazy. I went and got in debt and got a degree, and I got a job you can get straight out of college with no degree. And I went to him and I was complaining. My father just listened. And then when I was done complaining, he goes, "How many doors are open?" I go, "1." He goes, "Walk through it." So what I would say to people is, walk through the doors that are open, because, I'm not, however the universe works, that was the door that was open for me. And I tell you what, so that gentleman ended up buying a brokerage in London, England, Valdivino's Investment, selling AIG products. And he came to me a year later and said, "I want you to be my salesman in London, England, selling AIG products." And I went over there and I did well, let's just say. I came back 3 years later and I bought my first company, the Mustang Shop. And that's where my entrepreneurial journey began. But it started with learning how to make calls, learning how to set appointments in the most difficult environment, right? Not a friendly environment. I'm calling people, just cold calling, and I didn't have any training. They just literally said, "Start dialing." So you can imagine the things that were being said to me on the phone, but I had a tough skin, because it started with seeing what my, quitting and look, we all have our failures, and just watching what my father went through to get us educated and get us, take care of us. It was hard for me to go back and say, they wanted me to make 100 phone calls. So I quit. I just didn't, I didn't have that type of DNA, I got to where I was making 200, 300, 350 phone calls a day. And I started seeing the success from the calls. I started getting better at my calls. I started reading, developing my craft. So yeah. I
Dialing
can
for
keep
dollar.
talking, but I have to stop
Awesome.
myself.
Okay, so I heard something there that you said the Mustang shop. Is
Yeah.
that a car shop? Are you
Yeah. So the
buying-
Mustang Shop was owned by Shelly Harrison. Shelly Harrison is a great man. Shelly Harrison started the Mustang Shop in Duncanville, Texas. he started in Duncanville, Texas, and they restored 64 and a half to 67 Mustangs, as well as Shelbys.
Oh,
Right. And Shelley ran it for some years. I think it was roughly 15, 20 years, and had built it up for some time. And Shelley's story in itself is very, we have to get into Shelley's story in another episode. Grew up in Oregon in a log cabin, went on to become one of the top COBOL programmers in IBM in the late 60s.
Wow.
Yeah, this got his story. I get goosebumps. That's one we need to tell. But so I befriended Shelley. I was coming back from England every 6 months or so, and I met Shelley. We were at Hotel Zaza Dragonfly. I was there, young with some, doing well, and ran into Shelley, and we built a friendship. He said he was selling his company, and I said, I ended up getting it and moving it from Duncanville to Red Oak. And then we moved to Red Oak. We had 15 employees. He was just doing auto restoration. So I added collision, I added sandblasting, I added auto sales, and I added custom paint. So I added 4 more revenue streams. And I learned that from Shelley. Shelley told me, anything you have, you can make, how do you say it? Anything you can make serve more than one purpose. You have 12 acres. I had 30,000 square feet of metal building. I had a red barn as the office and the showroom. So I made it serve more than one purpose. So we would restore cars. We would do custom paint. We would do sandblasting. We would do collision work. If one thing wasn't going, the other thing was going. So I diversified. And then when all 5 were going, it was very lucrative. And then I ended up marrying Shelley's daughter, my first wife, and then we ended up having a divorce, and that was the kind of the end of that in an unsuccessful way. I just being honest, just a human, young, you think, and you're in love, but as you get older, I tell my daughter my daughter's Camille is going to turn 18 May 5th, Cinco de Mayo.
Wow.
And that was the daughter me and Kelly had, Shelley's daughter. And I tell my daughter all the time, and when you're young, you think, right? And when you get to our ages, we look back, and you guys know what I'm trying to say. You're like,
absolutely.
God, if I knew,
absolutely.
I was like, oh my goodness. So long and short of it, everything I went through, I was supposed to go through, and I accept it. But yeah, that was the journey there with the shop. So when I was at the shop, I taught myself HTML, HTML5, JavaScript. I was doing our web pages. I was connecting to eBay, running the auctions. So when the divorce hit, our divorce was several years. They froze everything. So it was a reset. I had to start all over. I went and got into IT. I got hired by Praxis Global. Praxis Global is a system integrator out of Mexico City, DAF. Yeah, Central Mexico City. So Hector Navarro was the manager, and he's now the CEO for the US. Hector's still a good friend to this day. I was their first US employee, and they brought me on to sell system integration, software development, nearshore. And back then, nearshore was like, what do you mean you want to send a technical work to Mexico? They were like, I learned.
But they take siestas. How are you going to send it there?
but some of the most technical people on the planet come out of Monterey Tech. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I learned that. So I would set meetings, and our technical teams would be in meetings with Perot Systems, IBM, HP. And I'm telling you right now, I get goosebumps. They could not handle us. We would win the deals. And one of the first deals we won was BMC Software out of Houston. And it ended up becoming a global contract. It was a beautiful thing. And all the skills I developed to that time, calling, setting appointments, I developed there. So that was kind of the next step of my journey. But yeah, I'll let you ask the next question. I know we're
good. We're good. Well, we're definitely going to do a next one.
Yeah, absolutely.
We can go for a couple of hours with See,
Yeah.
to me, you can tell you're good at sales because everything's a story.
Yeah, thank you.
And a good story.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, it's people relate to stories, and and I would just, as a young person, just a natural storyteller. Um, I've been through a lot of different experiences, being born in Istanbul and being raised in Dallas and spending summers in Europe. I got some flavoring, as I like to say. I left Texas, I saw the States, I saw Europe, I lived other places. I've been around, I tell people, I grew up poor here, but when you start, it's funny. So I grew up poor here, but everywhere I went, I wanted to see what the poor people lived like. So when I would be
A
in
bit different.
Frankfurt, I'd want to see the ghetto in Frankfurt. I'd want to see, because that was, to me, when you understand that, you have a real pulse of where you're at and what's going on, because of how I was raised. For whatever, I don't know if that's right or wrong, but it was something about me.
It's
People-
neither, it's just you.
people would say, "What do you want to see?" I said, take me to where, the people are starting out or having, I don't want to say the ghetto, but take me to that area and let me see. I want to see, because I wanted to compare it to my experience. And you know what? It's a lot of similarities. And anyway, so like you say, I want to be respectful of time. So
Yeah, there's a big saying that I don't know if it's a general saying or at my company, it's the facts tell, stories sell. It's just relationship.
Yeah.
So now I see your profile. You're more on the sales, and you do sales consulting and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I know we have a couple of minutes, and it's going to be good because we're going to leave it as a cliffhanger.
Sure.
So people come for season 2. How did you pivot with all the things that happened last year?
What happened was I was in commercial real estate right when COVID was starting, January, February. That happened. I started a sandblasting company. I had some issues finding help delivering the work. When I got out of that, I took the last couple months of the year last year and I said, what is it that I really, really love doing? And it's selling. What do I really know? I know how to implement sales processes. I know how to manage salespeople, manage the process of sales. So I started Turquoise Digital as a sales consultancy, a sales as a service, sales outsourcing company where you can come to us and we'll help you sell your products or services. In the midst of that, I got connected with some virtual assistants in the Philippines as well as Latin America. So we developed another company called DFW Speaks, VA virtual assistant services, which can provide a cost-effective inside sales, real estate, bookkeeping, just data entry, repetitive tasks where you can outsource that at a good cost and help support your sales outsourcing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to be writing messages. You need to be doing, the more, I guess, the managerial type stuff of running your company. Exactly. The thought leadership of your company where you put that stuff in place. So the two companies kind of have Turquoise Digital and DFW Speaks virtual assistant services have become a very interesting thing. And, they're both just a couple months old. So we're at the initial stages. We've got a couple clients signed up. We're getting a lot of international interest. Companies are wanting us to be their sales department. And, we have the ability to, hire and train local salespeople for companies, as well as, the backup work being done offshore, near shore, when and if needed.
Very cool.
Fantastic.
All right. So just as we wrap up for today, and we'll be sure to schedule a second one.
Okay.
And maybe a third and fourth, because once we get into the stories, that might be a show, that might be a couple of beers, one of this, on one of the happy hours that Andrew puts together.
Yeah, certainly. We have to schedule these.
Yeah.
Tony, before we
How
sign
can
off, where can
people
people find you? Yeah.
Yeah. So y'all can find us Turquoise Digital, TURK. So Turquoise with a K, OISE digital.com. And then DFWspeaks.com. Those are the The virtual assistance page is the DFW, and then the Turquoise Digital is the sales consulting.
Okay,
And it's not an aggressive, we want to be a good fit for who we work with. So I don't want people to feel like if you contact us, we're going to do a hard sell. There's no hard selling. We just want to understand what problems you have and if we're a good fit to help solve your problems. So
cool. So we'll make sure to tag you. We're on Facebook Live. We'll upload this to LinkedIn to
So
you.
this is live.
In Facebook, yes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no editing that one. We'll edit the other ones.
Tony, this was both fascinating and entertaining. Yeah, we'll look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, good luck and congratulations.
Thank you, guys. I appreciate it. Looking forward to speaking further.
Yeah, and look forward to meeting you in person in one of the happy hours.
Sure.
Definitely.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. Thank you everyone for being here. This is Success Paradigms. My name is Emilio Garcia. And as always, we have Mr. Andrew Barker with us. And thanks again, Tony. Tony
Thank you
K.
so much, Tony.
I'm not gonna, I see that's the way you put it in LinkedIn. That's the way I'm going.
Sure.
Thanks again for being here.
Thank you, Tony. Ciao.
We'll be in touch.
Bye, everyone.
Thank you.